But let's talk to somebody who knows what they are talking about. Joining us now, former airline pilot and aerospace expert Kathleen Bangs. Kathleen, thank you for being with us. So this same plane, I want to start with this because this is kind of crazy to me. This same plane, when we're talking about today, experienced 3 pressurization warnings between December 7th and January 4th. And the question that leaves me with is, should this thing have been in the air at all?
Well, one thing you have to understand is that aircraft often fly with what we call inoperative equipment. And so maintenance comes in and they have very demanding procedures they have to go through to determine whether it's a light, which it sounds like it probably was in this situation, a sensor probably connected to a light. And if they can defer that maintenance, okay, they put a sticker on and they say this is deferred to a later time. That is not uncommon. Alaska then went through the extra step of, instead of having that aircraft on a Hawaii flight, where if there was an incident, it would be much more, they'd want to be somewhere close to land, and that wouldn't be possible. What they did is they restricted it to domestic operations, and that was sort of an extra step they went beyond. So it's not that highly unusual.
Kathleen, I'm curious if this feels like a Spirit Aerosystems problem, something further down the supply chain, a Boeing problem, or maybe more of an FAA problem?
Well, Spirit Aerosystems, based out of Wichita, actually used to be a part of Boeing.
Yep.
So Boeing spun it off years ago as a financial decision. And so it makes the fuselage, or the body of the aircraft there. And that's where that plug door that we're talking about. It's really not a door, but it's a plug where a door could possibly be in the future. And so what we're looking at is this a systemic issue, or will it be a one-off? Now, thankfully, they found that door. And I think just from seeing where it exited, they had a lot of information over the weekend. But now that they have that door, they can examine it and determine, was this an engineering problem, a manufacturing problem, a metallurgy problem, or an installation problem, by looking at, is there a missing bolt or some sort of spring lever action? Was something not torqued properly, too torqued, whatever it is, and then we'll know if it's a one-off. But until then, I heard earlier on Cavuto somebody say that these planes have been returned to service. I have not had that confirmed from United or Alaska. I have not had that confirmed. From what I've seen, they still have to comply with this emergency airworthiness directive from the FAA and are in the process of doing so. They were returned earlier to service on Saturday, but that, my recent knowledge, has not changed.
Kathleen, we're just happy nobody was sitting right next to it, that there could have obviously been worse injury than what we've seen here. But I think back to the history of those 737 MAX crashes and how scared people were to fly after that. Now you've got another incident like this. This is an issue of safety, number one, first and foremost, but also Boeing is a publicly traded company. How do they restore confidence in flyers, people who want to travel in the American public, that their planes will be safe moving forward?
Well, that's right. Boeing produces airplanes. They manufacture airplanes, but what they really sell is trust to the American public, which was, of course, shaken during not only those MAX horrendous fatal accidents, but that lengthy 20 months that it took to get to return to service. But they can take heart that this is the most scrutinized airliner, surely, in the history of aviation. And the FAA jumped on this right away by basically grounding the fleets. And so I think until they're completely confident that this door situation, this plug door, is a one-off and not a systemic issue, I think that there's probably not a lot to worry about. I don't think they're going to return it to service until they're very, very confident they know the cause and that they know the remaining fleet, which I think is about 171 in the U.S., that none of them have the same defect.
Kathleen, we appreciate your expertise. Thanks for being with us today.